Yeah, you go and try and unsettle Laura Henry. I mean, whether you can unsettle this woman, I mean, she has the most incredible technique. All the coaches have been talking about it. Andy Randell says she has a natural feel for the boat.
There's a rare breed of rowers who can do it all. They're strong, they're mentally tough, and their technique allows them to use their physical and mental potential to be fast. That is it. And there's a name for it. Her name is Lauren Henry.
She gets onto the front and just lifts herself off the seat, so she's got a lot of her weight suspended off the seat, only a little bit to move it back.
There are a couple things that we can learn from her. For example, this is the post-start phase, so we are roughly 40 seconds into the race, not quite. Look at the suspension of the lats right here. You need to suspend the lats. You should not try to suspend the shoulders as your main goal. Of course, the shoulders will be long, naturally. But if you have your shoulders long alone, you disconnect them from the torso. And the idea is that you see your hands as extensions of the torso. This is where I want it to be. So the aim is really to go through the lower side of your arms. This is what makes you fast. That's the important phase right after the catch. When your blades enter the water, the question is how quickly can you stabilize them? And the aim is that you stabilize the blades up and down as quickly as possible. So I don't want them to go any deeper than they should. And the reason for that is that everything that the blade moves up and down will create slip. That means the blade doesn't have lock on the water. A simple example I gave in the last video. You sit on a skateboard and you want to propel yourself reverse because you're a rower and your entire world works that going forward is going backward. You get what I mean? Would it be your goal to try, okay, my goal is to have my hands rub very quickly over the concrete so that my skateboard moves backward as quickly as possible? Probably not. Your goal would be, just for the sake of protecting your hands, of course, to have a good lock on the concrete, on the floor, so that you can pull yourself past your anchored hands. Why should there be any difference when we look at blades? The reason why we can move the boat is because the blades nicely lock onto the water. Blade and oar manufacturers spend a lot of time thinking, how can we create that blade better so it provides better lock? So the goal is to avoid slip. And later on, I will show you a drone shot where it is quite visible how little slip Lauren Henry has over the Danish rower Frida Nielsen. There's quite a distinct difference, and it has something to do with how Nielsen moves her body in contrast to Lauren Henry. Stay tuned, it's going to come up later. Super interesting.
You can't phase Lauren Henry. She's just kept that sculling technique up. She's just connecting so well.
Stabilizing the blade is very important, and it's nothing where you can say, okay, now stabilize my blade. Your body has got to be in the right position. There is a phase, you have to notice, there is a phase when your blade enters the water where you start to push with your legs. Naturally. I mean, this is what we all learn. What do they coach? Hard leg drive at the catch. Yes, of course your legs have to work hard. Of course. So step one, you try to find connection with the legs. Beautiful. So you push off the foot stretchers, goes right through the body, through your torso. Ideally, please, through the lower side of your arms, lats into the hands, into the blades. As we discussed, please have proper lock on the water and avoid slip. Okay, so far so good. Energy doesn't just travel one way because water has massive density. So once you have lock on the water, which is the case about here, if you are as excellent as Lauren Henry is, then energy comes back from the blades, through the oars, through your arms. And now the question is, how? Does it go through the shoulders? This is not what we want. Does it go through the lats, through the torso, back onto your foot stretchers again? This energy will come back. It's like asking a question at the catch with the fierceness of your leg drive. And then, of course, once you find proper hold, the energy comes back, you have an energy balance, and then you try to overcome inertia because you want to accelerate the boat. That's a typical beginner's mistake, that at the catch we believe we can have a certain motion pattern, and no matter what the resistance is, we just follow the motion pattern. And if you cannot accelerate the boat enough with your motion pattern, just do more motion. That is not how physics work. Physics work that you try to have a nice connection with the blade through your legs, then you have lock, and then you feel, okay, now I'm really connected with the boat, and can I push it away or not? Or if so, how quickly? And this is what we need to wait for, and this energy will overwhelm you. So if you push too hard in comparison what your lats can brace for, then you will overwhelm them. So a typical reaction would be high shoulders, because the energy has to go somewhere. If you're not cautious and you don't expect two connection phases, one where you push with your legs and one where you wait for the resistance to come back from the blades, then you're doomed. And you see rowers, if you're coaching, you see rowers who use the upper body too early. They bend their arms. This is not because they're weak. This is because they don't anticipate that energy comes back. And this is even harder than pushing with your legs, because pushing with your legs is a one-way road. But this is a two-lane road. So it will go the other way back, and that is harder to deal with. And most rowers are simply not coached to be prepared for this. The trick is, I will show you that on the BioRower, how to do this and what the force curves look like if you don't do it. Because that's one of the most important things to coach and to teach rowers. I personally use this to lengthen out my lats into their final position. That really is, if there's any trick, this is the trick. The trick is that you know you're not going to be able to brace enough, so you don't even extend the lats 100%. You'll let this be done by the energy that goes back through the body. So now Lauren Henry is in a perfect position. To anticipate that takes a deeper understanding and a coach who knows how to explain this. And Lauren Henry is exactly spot on where you should be. Because now at that phase where many rowers are not connected properly because they don't anticipate the energy coming back into the body, she's positioned perfectly. Now we got exactly what we want. So we have a blade that has very little slip. It's properly locked to the water. And we have the entire body weight plus muscle strength suspended between the foot stretchers and the blades. And now the drive can start. This is when you start to move the boat, not before. So telling people, hey, just push harder with the legs makes it worse, not better. First, we need to understand that a catch is a multi-stage process. And now she pushes with the legs. Now comes the next step where a lot of people mess up because we try to accelerate the handles. That's another one of these things. There are some people who measure successful rowers and they say their oar handle speed is such and such. And I don't know, their breathing pattern is such and such. Based on that deduction, we may make the conclusion that you have to have the same oar handle speed. No, that's not a way of coaching. We want to achieve something completely different. We want to move the boat. If we aim for a high velocity of the oar handles into the finish, then it is actually better to disconnect the blades from the water and to wash out and to contract the arms early if high oar handle speeds are the goal. Because hey, the world's best rowers have a certain oar handle speed. But that leads to the wrong results. What we want is to move the boat past the blade and stay connected for as long as possible. Stay connected with legs and torso and body weight. See, hands are past the knees and she's still using body weight. Let this be your guide. Don't fall for the trap of go for high oar handle speeds and all that. No, you want to move the boat. Logical physics. There's another gem. See how she's bringing the rib cage forward, bringing the upper abs forward, not the chest out. That's really important because I do want to keep that slight curvature in the upper back. So what I really want is to bring the upper abs forward here, not the chest, because the chest will bring the shoulders back. I want to bring the rib cage forward. I will show you this on a BioRower just in a moment. This is also a beautiful comparison shot between Nielsen and Lauren Henry. Nielsen on the far side, Henry closer to us. Henry brings the upper abs forward, as if she were trying to initiate the weight shift, as if she were trying to control the boat with the control of her torso. While Nielsen has a very good position at the finish, but she's not assuming control over the foot stretchers with her torso. And that's a very important point. As we come forward, I think both of them bend their knees too early. So the hip joint doesn't have enough support, so it's difficult to get the pelvis forward. However, this is the post-start phase. Almost nobody's perfect here. It's really difficult to be perfect here. I think Imogen Daisy Grant is one of the few athletes I've ever seen do that properly. And Lauren Henry compensates the best way possible. See, in a phase like this, realistically, you're not going to keep the knees down forever. You're going to be thinking of everything, but not, oh yeah, coach said knees down. Where is she? No, that's not what's going to happen. So the solution is, with the bend of the knees, to aim to lengthen the hip flexors. Because of that conglomerate of muscles, especially the psoas muscle, has direct influence over where the lower spine is. So the angle of the low spine is controlled to a large degree by the hip flexors. This is important to know. So effectively, my focus point is in here. It's in the front, right there, this angle. This is the angle I'm trying to change now with the bend of the knees. So the moment my knees go up, the tendency would be that my pelvis tilts backward. In order to make it tilt forward and in order to be able to shift the body weight to in front of the seat so that I have it available for the so-called upper body swing into the finish, I need to control my hip flexors so I can control the entire torso. And that is becoming more and more and more difficult as you reach the catch. If you hold your knees down longer, the start of it is easier, but you still cannot get around of controlling your hip flexors into the catch position, namely here. This is where you really need to have your hip flexors long so that the body weight is in front of the seat even at the catch. This is extremely important. And that is also the secret why Lauren Henry has fairly what we perceive to be low shoulders. It's core control. Here is the stretch of the lower arms into the hands. That's the goal. It's not the goal to stretch the shoulders forward. And you would stretch the shoulders forward if your focus point were the hands. The goal is to move the elbows forward because the elbows are much better to pull the lats forward than the hands. The hands will always stretch the delts. I want to make sure I move the lats forward. So on the way to the catch, make sure your hip flexors are long so you have a good base, so you sit properly. And into the catch, still focus on making the hip flexors long. And as you reach the catch, make sure you pull with the elbows on your lats and push your hands out with your elbows. That is the trick. I will show you exactly the sequence on a BioRower in just a moment. And now watch something else. Every time Lauren Henry gets this energy back from the blades, you see how the lats lengthen out. You see this right after the catch. By the way, thank you, Henley. This long side shot is gorgeous. You didn't film the start phase here. You filmed the side for a long time. And that was a very, very good choice to make. Thank you. Because here we can see, look, every time the energy comes back into the body, the lats are lengthened out. And she's connected. She's moving the boat right away. She's moving the boat right away. If we look at Frida Nielsen, by the way, my greatest respect to her, she moved from sweep rowing into the single scull, and her success is amazing. Unbelievable what she has achieved. And also her technique is really sharp. If I were her coach, if there's anything I would change immediately, say, hey, that hip flexor control, I mentioned with Lauren Henry. I think that's her downfall, because if you see her go into the catch, it appears that she's really putting a bit of weight onto the handles into the catch. You see, this is not the same hip flexor control that we saw with Lauren Henry. So the effect is that there's quite a bit of weight on the handles because there's not enough control here, that angle. There's quite a bit of weight down onto the hands. So that torso weight, it's got to be supported somehow. And if you don't control this section here, this angle, by trying to tilt forward and make it long at the same time, the weight of the top section of the torso has to be supported. So it's supported by the handles. And this is why the blades come off just before the water. And this is why it takes Nielsen more time to stabilize the blade. Therefore, she has more slip on the blade, and therefore she doesn't propel the boat as much. To me, this is the explanation why she's behind. Here, look at this drone shot. So over here, this is Lauren Henry, this is Frida Nielsen, and you can see it's almost like she's slipping through the water. That's quite visible. Let me go back. Every time Henry takes a stroke right here, the boat starts to move almost immediately. But every time Nielsen takes a stroke, there's a lot of slipping. A lot of motion in the boat, but not much boat motion. So why is there slip on the blade? See, here's Nielsen on the far side. When you now start to push, the goal is to stabilize the blades as quickly as possible, as she doesn't support the low back as much as Henry does. The effect is that the low back here roundens. Remember what we talked about, that energy you send into the system comes back, and when it comes back, it cannot evaporate. You have to use it. So what Nielsen does very well is she too lengthens the lats. Beautiful. But she doesn't have enough support here around the hip flexors. So in other words, she doesn't tilt her pelvis. In other words, her low torso isn't long enough. And remember, this is what I said in the last 2-3 videos. What we learned from ballet dancing is if you want to brace the torso, you have to make it long. You have to perceive it becomes long. And it's exactly this, where the blades go deep, 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 deep. Look how deep they are. And now mid-drive, she's starting to get a hold. Now you see the oars bend. See? Until then, you don't see them bend. Now you see them bend. I mean, Nielsen is physically very, very, very strong, I suppose. Otherwise, she wouldn't be as successful as she is. But hey, the catch really lets her down. And I think that hip flexor control, she'd be working on this. This could be the solution. So these are the most important points to take away from this. Step number 1, overbracing makes you slow. A lot of beginners do this at the catch. They push very hard with the legs, and they think that's it, because I move the flywheel, I move the boat. That's not the case. You want to establish a force balance. So you push, and then the resistance comes back, and the question is what happens then? Most people don't realize this, as explained in a video, and then this happens because, whoa, the energy is going to go somewhere. You're surprised, and you do this, or you do that, or you do this. Some kind of motion to get around that immense load of energy coming back into the body. And if you're not aware of this, or if you have never been made aware of this, well, of course, you're going to do something weird. So the point is, position yourself 90%, and once you feel the load, lengthen yourself out. I really hope you can see this from the top camera. It's really here. That point, you push at the catch, and once you feel the resistance, you use that to lengthen yourself out again. So if you don't overbrace at the catch, now you have suspension lift to create that part of the curve. So the second part of it that actually moves the boat the most, because now your oars are around 0, the middle position. Now your blades are at the best possible angle to move the boat. So now you lengthen out. And this is the point I'm trying to convey as next. Long, long, long. See, my hands past my knees, and I'm still suspending. Whoop. This is what is important. So when you do legs, and then legs and upper body, and then legs, upper body, and arms, you all of a sudden become aware of, oh, I don't need to do this. Because this is not rowing. Rowing is a leverage game. So Legs, upper body, arms, just complete from a lat pull. Very important. At the finish, rib cage forward. I call it upper abs forward, essentially that. Instead of doing military-like precision, no. Why abs forward? Because this is where the transverse abdominis attaches. And the transverse abdominis is like a muscle ring that stabilizes the entire torso, which will be relevant for you balancing the BioRower or the boat on the way forward. If your BioRower is said to be unstable, that's what you need. By the way, this is the only rowing machine where you can train specifically the deep muscles, the coordination of deep muscles to hold the boat stable with your core on the way to the catch. This is extremely important for the boat because on any other rowing machine you just become numb. It's like moving a potato sack back and forth. So rib cage forward, abs forward, pa. This is extremely important. It's not about sitting up straight. No, it's about, getting ready. So it looks like this. That's what I don't want. That's what I do want. Hope you can see the difference. Logical? Because now I can really plant my torso into the drive. Nice and loose. Loose and long. That's the fun part about rowing. Moving the boat with your leverage and with your weight and strength. Last big takeaway of this video, hip flexors long. Once you bend your knees, try to make the belt long. Angle it forward. And even if you hold your knees down forever and you say, okay, we're gonna do this. Because now you go forward into the catch and then, woo, seat comes forward, hands don't. Because you always need to work against the tendency to fall back with the pelvis. So going forward always requires making yourself long. It's a bit of low back work. It's a bit of pelvic work. You kind of sandwich the low torso on the way to the catch. So the more you reach the catch, the more you need to, that's actually a belt that shows it quite well. Here, I'm trying to sandwich it, make it long. Whoop. So you really try to make yourself very, very long here. It has nothing to do with the chest. Absolutely nothing. And as I reach the catch, this is how you are able to have all the weight on the seat. If you do this, sit behind it, and then go forward, many rowers do, then you need a bit of time before your hands found a bit of stability. And somewhere mid-drive, now your hands remain vertically stable. If you do this on a BioRower, for example, if you do it wrong, your curves at the catch will look like this. This is what it looks like. See the little hiccup at the beginning? And people hate it because they try to row the BioRower like an erg. That's a rowing machine, it's not an erg, it's a big difference. Now you really need to have your hands stable and go around the pins. It's that kind of motion, or if you have the sweep oar handle and the 166 spread, every pro comes with this, then you really go around the pins as well. This is absolutely vital for rowing. You cannot erg the boat and you cannot erg the BioRower. And what I see with many rowers who have issues with the connection at the catch or suspension during the drive, it's usually the result of trying to be fast on the wrong kind of device. Rowing is not erging. Major difference. If you're interested, BioRower.com. I started this project as a passion project 25 years ago. And all my adult life is in this. No investors, no loans, hard work, 3 day jobs to pay for this. My partner back then and I invested everything we had because we believed in something we still do today. For 17 years, I didn't take out any money. This is the future of indoor rowing. It costs about as much as a single scull, so it's an investment, but it's something you can keep forever. And 70% of our customers have it at home, just saying. When you go into the catch, it appears to me that you have particularly a focus on having your weight on the seat and foot stretchers and not on the hands. At least you do this significantly better than Nielsen, for example, on the other side. Is that something you focus on? And if yes, What are the metaphors that you are using that other people could be using as well to row equally well around the catch? Because the result is that you connect significantly quicker than Nielsen does, for example.
So I would say I definitely think about being well prepared and well set up for the catch. So yeah, definitely, like, I wouldn't say I ever feel that much weight in my handles. Probably not that much. I wouldn't say I really think too hard about it. It's probably something that's come quite naturally to me. But yeah, I would guess that a lot of the weight is in the seat and the foot plate. Like, I focus a lot on being very leg driven when I row. So I almost want everything to come from down low. I try not to think too much about my upper body. I've always kind of been told, you want to be well prepared going into the catch. You don't want anything to kind of move when you go into the catch. So you just kind of slide in, put the blades in, and then like sort of push your legs, which is kind of in a simple way what I'm kind of trying to do. Yeah, I think someone's always said to me about like, being quite, you want the weight in the foot stretcher, but you don't want to be heavy in the foot stretcher. You want to be quite light in the foot stretcher. So you don't want to kind of be heavy in it and push the boat the other way, because then obviously the boat's going in the wrong direction, which isn't that helpful.
Something else I noticed, when you start to drive, you don't just push with your legs and whatever happens, happens. It appears to me that you almost wait for a response from the blades so that the energy from the blades can come back into your body, and you use this to get the final body position suspension you like for the drive. Do you do this intentionally? And if so, what are the metaphors? Or is this just my wishful thinking observation? But you do it, almost perfectly.
So yeah, again, I'd say that's something that is not something I've kind of intentionally developed, but something that has developed in my sculling over time. I've always felt very comfortable at high rates. I find that sort of thing is really quite easy for me to get at high rates, and something I struggle to get at low rates. And it's very, very difficult to put into words the feeling, but there is a definite feeling I get of like energy around the catch and like slotting the blade in. I don't want to say it's definitely not being patient with filling the blade, because that's not what I'm trying to do. It's trying to be quick, but I'm not trying to I'm trying to get the suspension, I guess. But yeah, it's very difficult to describe, but that is definitely the feeling that I'm going for, and it definitely helps with sort of efficiency and keeping the boat feeling lively.
At the finish, to me, it seems like you almost try to push the rib cage or upper abs towards your hands in order to reposition the body weight to get it in front of the seat again. Other people just try to have, chest out or stable position overall. It appears to me that you literally try to focus on getting the upper body towards your hands with the blade exit to assume better control over the boat through the foot stretchers. Is that a justified observation? And what are the things that you focus on in training to make this happen?
Well, I'd definitely say it's a justified observation. If anything, I am working at rowing a little bit longer around the finish. I do tend to cut the finish a bit short, which gives me, a lot of stability around the finish, a lot of control, but might not necessarily be the best thing. So I'm actually trying to open out a little bit more around the finish, because sometimes I feel I look slightly hunched over. That's kind of, I wouldn't say it's my style, but I've kind of always been slightly like that around the finish. But yeah, it's something, I wouldn't say that's what I'm intentionally doing, but it's kind of developed for me, and something that we're kind of playing around with a lot to find what is the most efficient way around the finish, because I don't tend to row like that at lower rates. But yeah, we're just kind of trying to figure out, it's definitely not intentional, but what works best for us.
What goes through your mind in a race like that? You are Olympic champion. It's not like you are missing experience or lacking experience, but still, in terms of technique, of course, you got muscle memory pattern to draw from and huge experience. But what are the things that you focus on during a race when you feel like, okay, now it's not going so well? Maybe there is nothing, but maybe there is something that young and upcoming rowers could draw from and say, wow, if Lauren does this, I could do this too.
I'm not someone that feels the need to go out too fast off the start, which unfortunately didn't necessarily work that well for me at the World Championships. But that was for other reasons. You know, I've always been someone very internal. I've always had a lot of belief in my second half, my sort of mid-race pace. You know, that's dating back to when I did junior stuff and under 23, a lot of domestic stuff. Like, I've always been very, very strong in the middle and the second half of the race. So, you know I'm very fit. I just have to be quite internal. I'm not a big athlete. I'm 5'7", you know, just under 70 kilos. So I probably lack some of the raw power others have off the start, which is, you know, something I'm working on. But yeah, I'm quite comfortable being down. It's been like that since I was 16, 17. Like, I've always been down off the start. So, you know, I just kind of think about, you know, having my best start and then getting into my best rhythm. And, you know, I have a very detailed race plan with things I'm thinking about all the time, as I'm sure most international rowers do. But yeah, I'd say, you know, in a lot of my races I've been down. I've never been a fast starter. Even in the quad last in 2024 at the Olympics, we weren't fast starters. And I've always had a lot of belief in what I can do in the middle and the end of the race, which is something, you know, as we move to LA over 1500 is maybe not, you know, something that I maybe need to address a little bit. But yeah, I'd say for like rowers out there, like, you know, essentially you can only do your best race. So it's not worth wasting too much energy on what other people are doing unless, you know, you're up and ahead and you can take it down. Like, at the end of the day, we are racing other people, but you can't really control what they're doing, whereas you can control what you're doing. So I think like being internal and just producing your best is probably my biggest piece of advice.
Rowing's great all-time scullers. She's looking left, she's looking right. The finish is coming up for Lauren Henry. You can see what it's cost her. She really put the hammer down in the last 1,000 metres. And the sculler from Leicester City defeats Frida Sengold Nielsen of Bagsved Rowing Club, Denmark.
Ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss when I upload the next video. My name is Aram and I write training programs and coach people one-on-one and in small group classes, live online, on the water, on biorowers, on any linear rowing machine, but also in person in Vienna. I hold 12 rowing camps, 4 to 6 people next year, 2026. Reserve your spot so you can be part of it. Thank you once more to Henley Royal Regatta for allowing me to use their footage so that we can learn from the world's best rowers. I highly recommend you go and check out the original footage. I will, of course, as usual, leave a link in the description. With this being said, have a very good day. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the very next video. Bye-bye.